Doing well. So let's get started. As we have been reminded, we are already 2 minutes into the session, and I've talked nothing but nonsense. Where let's hope the next 28 minutes or so there's a bit less than nonsense. There are lots and lots of ideas coming up, so get ready. You can have the slides if you want. Feel free to get in touch with me at any stage. Um, so let's go. Let's get started. I'm not going to introduce myself. We'll just look at a few of the things we're going to do. You can see there's a lot to do there in not a lot of time. So we're going to get going. So how do you feel when you hear the words climate emergency? How do you feel? I always ask my students how they feel. We're always like, how are you? They're like, I'm fine. Boring. So let's go with something else. How do you feel? Do you feel motivated? Do you feel guilty? Maybe you feel powerless. Perhaps you feel scared. Or maybe you're uninterested, as if maybe you were trying to read Ulysses for the 15th time in your life. So what do you say? How do you feel? Let me see if I can get the chat up somehow. I'm sure I can. Oh, let's move that over here. There we go. You feel hungry. I feel scared. Okay, good. How about when you hear youth empowerment? How does that make you feel? Woohoo, exactly. That's how I feel. Yeah. Tired. Youth empowerment can be very tiring. Yeah. Happy, excellent. Now that's kind of my whole thing is youth empowerment, hoping that we can improve on that and build on that. I don't know if you've ever heard this very famous quote. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. That's my very bad impression of FDR. Just a quick thing. That is wrong. That is wrong. That is nonsense. Whoever wrote that speech, not going to say they're an idiot, but it was a terrible thing to write. There are loads more things to be fear, loads more things to fear, and there's nothing wrong with fearing them. The only thing to fear is apathy, in my opinion. Apathy is a whole lot more scary than fear because when we have apathy, people don't go out to vote, and then you end up with orange people in power, well, the rest of that is, I'm not going to get started on that, or I won't stop, and we'll just be sat here looking at Jane Goodall's face for the next 27 minutes, which wouldn't be a bad thing. Love Jane Goodall. So what we need to do is try and encourage our students to not be apathetic. And in doing that, I like to kind of drip feed with how they're feeling. So of course, we have all of these different emotions that we can show our students. We can share these ideas with our students. Love is stronger than fear. It absolutely is. But we never feel the same thing at the same time. Some days you'll feel more guilty than others. Probably the days when you've flown somewhere and everyone's gone, "Oh, you're a climate activist, but you got on a plane. You're an awful human." Or I don't know, maybe you've just been down to the butcher's and bought yourself a kilo of beef, and then you realise the enormous impact that has. So you go back home and do your recycling to make sure you feel better. Um, so these feelings change. They change, and it's very useful getting our students to know that when we ask how they feel, we mean it. We mean it. We don't just want them to say, "I'm fine, thanks," and you. So we can look deeper into those emotions. And this is a very simple thing you can do at the start of your lessons. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, although this fancy reinvented wheel is actually quite nice looking. Um, I like to look at these different emotions as action inhibitors from the bottom, and then above, they're more like action inspirers. So if your students are feeling anger and positivity, that's a good thing because you can use those emotions. If they're feeling those at the bottom, the sadness and fear, it's a bit more difficult to use. But this is for a whole different session, and hope that is very useful. It's a good one. It's much better than optimism, as this wonderful quote that Daniel Barber showed me from Eric Liu. To be optimistic is to assume things will work out. To be hopeful is to realize that things can work out if you work at them. Hope requires responsibility and agency. Optimism relieves us of both. So I like to start my students by understanding that they can be hopeful. So they are only words, and words are all we have to take your heart away. Sorry, again, just using I noticed that very few people got that, but yeah, it's a song. I just didn't sing it. Students do listen to us, so raise your words, not your voice. Again, another little quote there. It is the rain that grows flowers, not thunder. Be careful with your words and how you use them, and use them in as good a way as possible. So developing a greener mindset, We can use those words really easily by praising these sustainable behaviors. If a student has a refillable bottle, rather than saying to the student who has a plastic bottle, oh, you've got a plastic bottle, you say to the student with the refillable bottle, oh, well, that's a nice refillable bottle. Where did you get that? When you're going to buy me my end of year present, why not get me one of those? Because yeah, like students are going to buy me an end of year present. Reusing paper, making sure they use it in a positive way again, and not just, going to a blank page in their notebook and sticking down a piece of paper. I know these are very small things. And almost everything I do, it starts with a very small thing because you can't have big changes if you don't start with small ones. You can't go from zero to Greta in 2 days. It just doesn't work that way. You have to build it up. And when you're working with young people, these are the great ways to help build that up. So praising those behaviors like having the same bag as the year before. Whereas, often when you get to school, you need a new pencil case, you need new this, you need new that. You don't actually need it. My daughter has a pencil case that she's had now. This is her 6th year of using it. Um, so those simple things, praising these behaviors can really help. When students leave the classroom tidy at the end of the day, rather than what they do in Spain quite often is go, well, there's a cleaner. And having that attitude, if they have that attitude in the classroom, how do you think they feel when they're on the street? Maybe let's make the cleaner's life a bit easier so they don't have to spend more time working in our classroom. Let's keep it clean and tidy for them. So, praising these behaviors and students who use their voice for good. If they use their voice for good, support them for using their voice for good. Say thank you, say well done, say good job. Let them know that using their voice for good, even on the smallest scale, is a good thing to do. Okay, moving swiftly on because I have obscured my own clock. There we go. I've unobscured it, and I see that I'm 9 minutes in. There we go. I'm on course, Chris. Don't worry. I won't go too far over. Here are a few of my very favorite games. We're going to start with higher or lower. Now, guess what? You can do this with absolutely any number whatsoever. But I find we usually get to 100 and then we kind of stop. We get to 100 and we stop and then we figure out that, that's fine. So I'm going to ask you a question. And the question is higher or lower. I'm going to say to you, how many liters of water does it take approximately to produce 1 kilo of beef? Approximately, how much water does it take in total to produce this 1 kilo of beef? So, this is rearing the animal, this is growing its food. Approximately, how much water is that? What do you think? Chuck it in the chat box. Let's see what you got. Okay, does that say 100,000? Okay, so we've got some people who said 1,000, somebody said 10,000. I'm not sure if that's 100 or 10,000. There's so many zeros there, my eyes aren't working. Um, okay, some people said 40,000. Now, when you do this with a usual class and not a group of people who are environmentally aware, they'll say like 5 liters or 10 liters. It's about 15,000 liters approximately for just 1 kilo of beef. That's just 1 kilo. So how many kilos are there on a cow? I don't know. I've never weighed a cow, but I know that it's more than I can lift, and I can lift quite a lot of kilos. So higher or lower is a great way of getting people to practice different numbers. You can do it with stuff like the height of Mount Everest if you want to, 8,848. But it's a way of practicing numbers and raising awareness. The amount of CO2 released into the atmosphere, hectares of land that have been taken for deforestation, and those kind of things. Or you go the positive way. How many trees have been planted by ecosia.com, and why aren't you using it as your search engine? Because it doesn't search very well and no one uses search engines anymore, Harry. Everyone just uses AI. The next one is scrap paper games. My favorite one is snowballs. I get my students to write their planet pledge on a piece of scrap paper. This was once a wing. It is no longer a wing because I've lost the rest of it. So my planet pledge is going to be have fewer showers. Why not? Because I don't smell bad enough already. So I have fewer showers to save water, obviously. And then I'll screw it up in a ball because it's scrap paper. And I like to get my students to throw it at me. So they just throw it at the teacher. They love that. You can also get them to put it in the hat. Obviously, everyone wears a hat, so they're prepared for that. And then you hand them out to the students again, and they go around asking each other, you know, are you going to have fewer showers? Or are you going to eat less beef? Or are you going to only buy secondhand clothes? And they walk around the classroom and they ask each other for their ideas. And then once they've done that, they can go on the wall for a planet pledge. This planet pledge will come back later. Rapid spidergrams, super simple idea. Is just you write a word related to the environment on the board, and students write anything they know about it. They write it up there, you snap a picture, and then a few days later, when you've done a bit more studying, you pop it up there again and you see how many more words the students can get. They're all activities that we've done in our ELT classroom before. We've done them all before. We know all of these, but it's very simple to just put a little spin on it, put a little twist, make out that, make it a bit more green. And again, sustainability isn't just about being green, of course. There are other areas of sustainability. And I like to say when people ask me, what is sustainability? I just simply ask myself, is what I'm doing today making the world a better place tomorrow? That's it. That's all sustainability needs to be. It doesn't need to be any more complicated than that. If what I'm doing today is not making tomorrow, the world a better place tomorrow, then it's not sustainable. End of story. If I'm being horrible to somebody in my class, the world is not a better place. That's not sustainable. That's not a relationship that you can sustain. So, it's a very simple thing. You don't have to talk about pillars and economy. And no, is the world a better place because of what you're doing? Yes, you're being sustainable. No, you're, well, I'm not going to say that word. This is being recorded. You're not. Uh, so let's look now at the world around me. What is the world to our students? Well, obviously, the place where all of us teachers live is the classroom. Have you ever come across one of your students outside of school and they've given you that look of like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do here? And they kind of look at you in a blind panic. Um, Maybe say hello, maybe just hide behind their parents. I find that particularly with university students. Um, yeah, so showing them how you can change the world around them. And I forgot to get myself a glass of water, so I'm now running on incredibly dry mouth. So my apologies for that. So how can you give your classroom a greener feel? What can you do? Um, First of all, if your school doesn't have recycling bins, I know recycling isn't the answer, okay? But it's a really good first step, particularly for our very young learners, because it's showing them what they can do, where they can make a difference. So make your own recycling bins. Look at mine. My students made that. Isn't it beautiful? Yes, it really is. And then at the end of the day, at the end of the week, you can then count the different items that you have in there and say, hey, what do you think we could do to make sure next week we have fewer of these items? And that way you're teaching them the difference between less and fewer as well. And nobody gets confused. So you can go through and you can count all of the different items, and then they can say, "Oh, well, next week maybe I won't buy uh, a horrible processed snack that's covered in plastic, which can't be recycled anyway." Um, so get your students to create those recycling bins, and then see how long they last throughout the year before somebody throws a bottle of water in there. Plant. Plant some stuff in your classroom. Plant some herbs in your classroom. Show your students how easy it is to do that. We don't have a lot of space. And I also know that some teachers don't have any windows, which for me is kind of uh, seems like a human right to have natural light in your classroom, I would imagine. But, we can't all get schools where there is natural light everywhere. So it's more difficult to grow something like this, but they can grow at the front of the school maybe, or students can take them home. But best of all, they are upcycling the plant pots. And this is something that doesn't need to be done in the classroom. You don't need to waste any time, any of your precious time for practicing Cambridge exams. You can just get out there, you can get those made, you can put them in the classroom, and simply being amongst greenery will make your students more aware of greenery, more aware of nature, making sure your students pay attention to nature. So I love giving my students homework of how many different trees can you see between here and your house? Count them. How many different birds did you see outside? That's their homework. That's it. They don't have to write anything. They don't have to do any worksheet. They have to pay attention to the world around them. And in doing that, you build that kind of repetition with them and they start to pay more attention. They start to be less scared of spiders and say, oh, you got to kill it. No, you don't need to kill it. Spiders are lovely. They're really cool. They do great things. Love spiders. Okay, I don't live in Australia, so it's slightly less terrifying. I only live in Spain, where they're not very scary at all. Um, Take the planet pledges that you wrote. I'm going to go on and on and on about these planet pledges because I truly believe spiders aren't scary, Georgia. They're not scary. They're lovely. They help the world go round and they eat mosquitoes. Now, mosquitoes, they are not lovely. They love to bite me every night and make me itch in the morning. But anyway, planet pledges. I will talk about these again and again and again. Get your students to write down the things that they want to do and put it up on the wall so they can hold themselves accountable. So, whatever it is, I'm going to rewear this shirt twice before I wash it. Twice, he says. We all know I've already worn it 5 times and it hasn't been washed, but we're all online, so nobody can smell me, so it's not a problem. Um, Personal hygiene is important to me, obviously. I'm joking again, completely, mildly. SDG posters. What SDG are you working on? And again, making sure those SDGs are connected. It's very difficult to work on solitary SDGs and focus only on one thing because we shouldn't. We should never focus only on the one thing. We should look at the impact that it has on other areas. And when we talk about SDG 8, yes, decent work is very important, but growth, is that really very important? 3% growth every year, is that really very feasible? Is that sustainable? Absolutely not. Get a plant. Make sure your room is full of plants, as many as you can. The air quality will be cleaner. If you're teaching teenagers in the afternoon, the CO2 levels will reduce and you will see them come alive for at least 14 and a half seconds before they disappear back into wishing they could take out their mobile phones, which they can sometimes, but only appropriate times. Um, make new plant pots. You can find that activity in my book, obviously. The first unit is all about plants. Love plants. And then check the daily CO2 levels. Put them up on the wall. What is the daily CO2 level, the parts per million of CO2? Um, Stick it up there. What's it like where you live? What's it like where other people live? And the climate stripes. Put the climate stripes on the wall as well. So these are a few planet-based routines. Um, Big numbers, we've talked about big numbers before. Getting students to work on them, work higher or lower, getting students to look at these different big numbers and say them. Have you ever tried to say your mobile phone number as an actual number? Um, I haven't. I'm going to try and say it now. 673,506 and 47, something like that. I don't know, but it's hard to say big numbers. I speak Spanish very well. I have a C1 level of Spanish, but I'm rubbish with numbers. If you ask me to say any of these numbers on the board here, absolutely wouldn't be able to do it. So I've worked on this with 7-year-olds and I can say them saying numbers in the billions because they've practiced it as a very short routine at the start of class. And they find these on worldometers.info. Oh, no, no, I spelled that completely wrong. There we go. You can find those on there. Have a classroom job chart. We have job charts already, don't we? We all have job charts. I'm the teacher's helper. No, I'm the teacher's helper today. No, I'm the Spanish police. No, I'm the pen monitor. Well, instead of having it as a pen monitor, why not have it as a recycling monitor or a lights person, to make sure that everybody turns off their unnecessary ring light behind their computer? Because I didn't really need that, did I? Although I am currently running on solar power, so if I don't use it, I give it back to people who charge more money for it. So I should probably use it. Otherwise, the energy companies always win. Have a nice Planet-based vocab box. I'm sure you all work with your emergent vocabulary, taking down the notes, writing down these words. Keep the environmental ones separate. Keep them away from the other ones so they can bring them out and look at them whenever they want. I can see the wonderful Marcella is there, and she has a plant right next to her as well. She's one of my biggest heroes. Hello. Um, so having a planet-based vocab box, so all of the new vocab that you come up with or come across about the planet can easily go into that box and you can reuse it. Greenwash spotting is a super fun one. Just send them out looking for greenwashing. It's not very difficult. It's absolutely everywhere, particularly if you look at things like FIFA or any high street fashion store. TikTok, anyone who teaches teenagers will know that teenagers like social media. Social media is a fun thing to do. Ask them, set their homework as look for 5 environmental influencers or look for 5 vegan recipes or share them with your friends and then we'll watch the best one in class in the next lesson. If you do this on a number of occasions, then eventually the algorithm will learn that your students want to see those different things and it will start putting it up automatically. It's not technically brainwashing, but it is kind of a little bit algorithm washing, which is that bad? I don't know. I'm not sure how ethical it is or unethical it is, but I personally think I'd rather my students were looking at a speech by Clover Hogan than, I don't know, somebody jiggling various parts of their bodies for 35 seconds before skipping on to the next one and not even listening to the whole song. People don't even listen to whole songs anymore. Oh, the most annoying thing in the world when people do that on the bus. Headphones. Anyway, that's another thing. Um, Different topic completely. A 2-minute tweet at the end of your lesson as an exit ticket. You don't have to have taught about anything to do with the environment, but at the end of the lesson, get your students to think critically, yeah, and write a 2-minute tweet. Okay, maybe not tweet because we all hate Twitter now because Elon Musk, even though he's broken up with Trump, we still hate him because he's evil and a fascist, and we hate fascists. So have them write something, a tweet about what they've done in class. So, for example, there may be a spelling mistake in here, a grammatical error. Sport impacts climate in many ways, like people traveling to matches and food wasted in hotels. But the climate emergency also damages sport. 20 years ago, we never had water breaks in football. Now they do. Events are also cancelled because of snow, too. Oh, and it rhymes. So get your students just to look at what you've talked about in the lesson and write, and you can say to them a maximum of 280 characters, including spaces. It's such a more positive thing for students when you say, a minimum of 50 words. No, a maximum of 280 characters. Oh, well, I can write 10 characters if I want. You can, but you won't get your point across. Building and building and building, students will become more accustomed to this. And at the end of class, bam, they'll smash out a 2-minute tweet in no time. But you can get them writing it. They don't have to actually tweet. Oh, I need to update my LinkedIn. Thank you very much. Very good. Oh, that's good. I didn't even notice that. Been a while. Um, so green letter days. We've all heard of red letter days. We talk about these red letter days are important days in the calendar. Things like Christmas and Easter and David Attenborough's birthday. All of those important things that we all care so much about. Gotta love Big Dave. What a legend. So what I like to do instead is instead of just writing birthdays on our calendars, we can take our calendar. Anybody's birthday in June? Does anyone have a birthday in June? Pop it in the chat box if you have. Birthday in June. There we go. Nobody. Well, my daughter's birthday's in June. If that helps, it's on the 23rd. Oh, yes, the 5th of June. Excellent. Good. What's your favorite thing in the whole wide world? Happy birthday for yesterday, by the way. What's your favorite thing in the world, Rachel, or um, I'm going to guess Mohammed? I'm not sure. Uh, what is your favorite thing? And you can just change the birthday to be chocolate. Brilliant. Excellent answer because we all know about the impact of chocolate. We all know. So we can learn all about chocolate on your birthday. We can all bring in our favorite chocolate, making sure it's fair trade. We can all share the ideas about chocolate, how we can use chocolate in a positive way, look at the positive impact that chocolate can have when it's farmed properly and sustainably, and then you can work on it in that way. So students can have their day all about them, but also, hello, hello Belgium. Lovely to see you. Nice to see you here. So they can have that all about them. We can put the environment days on there. Obviously, yesterday was World Environment Day, or as I like to call it, my Easter, because World Earth Day is my Christmas. You know, when Mariah Carey at Christmas, she always comes out. Well, that's me on Earth Day. So World Environment Day was yesterday. That was my Easter. Um, put all of these days on your calendar. These UN days. The day of the tiger. The day of the blue-footed booby bird, whatever day it is, just pop it in there, put it in there. Students will see it, they'll be interested. It only has to be 2 seconds at the start of class. It doesn't have to be the entire class focused on that one thing. Oh, I've just made everybody disappear. That's not nice. I was enjoying looking at Hannah eating her lunch. Um, New name days. So if in Spain people celebrate their name day. Or their Santo, as they call it. I don't have one because my name's Harry. There isn't a Saint Harry yet. One day. But again, celebrating those name days and focusing on something environmental. A meat-free Monday. Why not? But not just in school. Get people to have meat-free Monday at home as well. It's not that hard. You don't have to have meat for 21 meals a day. 50 years ago, I don't know why I said 51. Why not? 51 years ago, people didn't eat meat every meal because they couldn't afford it. Why do people now expect it to be a thing that we eat every day? It is not necessary. That's not saying that everybody needs to be vegan. Everybody should be vegan. But that's not saying everybody needs to be vegan. I know that's difficult in Argentina, Marcela. So telling everyone to be vegan, but just reducing, cut back on that meat. And if you are obsessed with eating beef, why not switch it up and have pork one day, or chicken, or chickpeas, because chickpeas are the one. I love chickpeas so much, or garbanzos as we call them. Wear your clothes again day. Have it in class. Today I'm going to wear this. Tomorrow I'm going to wear this. Don't do it in the summer, especially if you teach teenagers. They smell bad day after day. So try and make sure you encourage this idea of you don't have to wash your clothes every single time, because if you wash your clothes every single time, each time you put a wash on, you're releasing 700,000 microplastics into the water supply. That is a lot of microplastics and microfibers, so don't do it. Do the sniff test. Luckily, I've got allergies, so I can't smell anything. Because otherwise, woof, that would not have been a good test. Have a plastic-free snack day. Hey, everybody, bring in a snack that doesn't use plastic. It's not that hard. Okay, you can use your reusable plastic tupper, maybe some hummus and carrot sticks. Who doesn't love hummus and carrot sticks? Or dal with anything dipped in it. Fruit, exactly. Fruit is the answer. Unless you're buying your bananas that are wrapped in plastic, in which case fruit are not the answer. Um, who does that? They have their own wrapping. Also, I noticed in the supermarket today, if you want to buy plátanos de Canarias, so the bananas that come from the Canaries, it's €3.70 a kilo. 3.70 a kilo. But if you want regular bananas that come from much further away, it's only 1.40. And I love bananas. I don't like plátanos. Also because they cost almost 3 times as much. So here are my top 10 fun projects to do in the classroom. Do poetry, rap, and stories involved in the environment. There are loads to find. You can find one in my book. But you can write poetry is easy. If you call something poetry, it's poetry. You know, you can get your students to write anything and it can be poetry. Are you telling me I'm at half an hour there, Chris? I'm guessing you
I
are.
am, thank you.
Yes. I'm on course, don't worry. I'm nearly there. I just need to speed myself up to 1.5. A protest march. Now, this isn't to say take your students out of school and go and protest, I don't know, genocide in Gaza, for example. You don't have to do that. But what you can do is do it in your school. You can do protests in your school. You can do practice the chants. You can make the placards. You don't have to go outside and question authority if it's going to end you up in prison. I don't advise anybody goes to prison for protest, but you can have them in school. You can learn the chants. You can invent your own chants. It's a bit of fun, and then you're drilling as well. Who doesn't love a bit of drilling? Well, if it's not for oil, Harry, then it's great. Oh my gosh. A litter pick. It doesn't have to be take your students out of class to go on a litter pick. No, you can do one on the way to school. And then when you get to school, say to everyone, hey, what did you find? And they'll say, there's 8,000 cigarette butts here. And you say, why did you pick them up without gloves on, Peter? And Peter will say, I don't know, teacher, I forgot my gloves. And you'll say, go and wash your hands, Peter. And also tell the bar to put a cigarette ashtray thing in there. Ashtray, that's what it's called. So yeah, it doesn't have to be outside of class. It can be on the way to class, on the way home from class. Book clubs. Who doesn't love books? Well, lots of kids actually don't love books. I love books, so I try to encourage students to read books, find books that are related to things they care about, and don't say, I love Huckleberry Finn, but if you force a child to read it, they're probably not going to enjoy it. So why not find something they might care about, like, I don't know, their future? That's a fun one. Art exhibitions, get your students to show their different types of art. This is one that was done in a school in India I work with my very good friend Ritik, who Marcella knows from many, many years ago. And they did this display with their different environmental based art. Not everybody's an artist, so maybe you don't have to put everybody's art in there. Do workshops at school. You can do proper recycling workshops if you want, how to recycle properly, and how to put pressure on people who aren't recycling properly, like those people above, rather than your grandma. Because if your grandma isn't recycling properly, it's not the end of the world. However, my grandma, she's a genius recycler. She's amazing. I think she's the best recycler I've ever met. Um, Plants and gardens. I've talked about plants before. I'll talk about plants again. I will always talk about plants. Plants are nature. Get nature in your classroom. If you can have a garden at your school as well, do it. Um, Try and get your students involved, because then they grow the food, they eat the food. Everyone's a winner. Upcycle everything. You don't need art supplies. If you're doing a project, I recently went to Turkey. I saw hundreds of projects, and I'd say 90% of them were made from upcycled materials. We looked at sustainable cities, and they'd built their own cities, and all of it was wonderfully found from all over the place. They created it from absolutely nothing, and they'd found these things. They hadn't bought anything new. And then photography. I just wanted an excuse to get a photo of my daughter in there, obviously. Um, Kids have these things. Teenagers have these things. Why not get them to take photos of a spot where there's loads of litter, then clean up the litter, and then take photos of it every day to see how long it takes for the litter to build up again. Maybe it won't build up again. And then they have a diary of it on their phones as well. So the last one there, letter writing campaigns. We always do this in our exam classes. We get our students to write a letter to your English friend John. Tell him about the things that they can do in your city. Come on. Am I going to write this in pet, in first? Like, come on. Every single level, I have to write this. Seville is a very beautiful city. Write something they care about. I hope not everybody's hearing an echo. If they are, I apologize. I don't really know what I can do about it. I'll put a hat on the microphone. That might help. I don't know. I'm not a professional. Get them to write about things they care about to people that they care about. Write to the school director. This works. If you get an entire classroom of students to write to a local cafe that is giving out plastic cutlery to say don't give out plastic cutlery or we won't come and eat here, then they'll change that pretty quickly. Get your students to use their voice, but with a pen in this case. But anyway, to use their voice in other aspects as well. And I believe that is that. Okay. I'm in the list of attendees twice. I don't have two tabs open, I'm afraid. I'm probably in the list of attendees twice because I kept trying to register and didn't get anything.
Hi.
Yes, we must.
Sorry, that was a response to echoes.
Ah,
I
okay.
did not hear you echo, by the way.
Ah, hopefully my words will echo in your minds.
I'm sure they
They
will.
always
days.
They
do.
will. There was no
You have the
problem at my
talent
end
to make
either.
me laugh out loud.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And therein is that is the end.